Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll look at the Mossberg 590 20 gauge Shockwave. The Mossberg 590 Shockwave is a relatively new but popular item to the market intended to fill the need for an effective home defense or truck weapon. Let's make sure this one's cleared. I suspect that there are a few of you watching this video that are wondering if this thing is even legal and or expecting me to call it a shotgun. Technically, it's not a shotgun because the Mossberg Shockwave 590 has a 14-inch barrel and a Raptor bird-style grip in place of a shoulder stock. It's not legally classified as a shotgun by the ATF. That's the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The ATF says that a shotgun must have an overall length of at least 26 inches and a barrel length of at least 18 inches and is a weapon designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder. The Mossberg 590 Shockwave is a little over 26 inches in length, but its 14-inch barrel and a grip which is meant to be held with your hand held over the top of the grip like a traditional shotgun, but obviously not from the shoulder. The Shockwave does not fit the definition of a shotgun under the federal definition. Okay, it's not a pistol either, is it? Well, actually, the federal definition basically states that a pistol is a weapon that is 1, designed to be fired with one hand, and 2, has a short stock designed to be gripped in one hand. So it seems that this firearm could technically be classified as a pistol. A pistol just happens to be shooting shotgun ammo. Now, although the grip is designed to be held in one hand, it's recommended that you use a second hand to stabilize the firearm. But the Shockwave definitely can be fired with just one hand. I've watched people do that, even the 12 gauge version. Still, calling it a pistol doesn't seem quite right. So for our purposes, we'll refer to it as a firearm. What about legality? Is this thing even legal? It looks like something Mel Gibson would carry in a Mad Max film. But yep, as far as the feds are concerned, the ATF states that this does not require a federal registration. Mossberg even includes a copy of the ATF letter to Mossberg regarding this decision as documentation with the Shockwave packaging. However, each state has its own laws, and each is different, so check your state's laws before trying to pick one up for yourself. In fact, Mossberg 590 Shockwave is actually illegal in Texas where it's made when it first came out until Texas changed its own state rules. I think that's an interesting fact. I bought this firearm specifically as a home defense weapon. I thought I should have an option with less penetration than my handguns, so I wanted to add a tactical shotgun to my options. I already had both the 12 gauge and 20 gauge shotguns, but at about 4 feet in length, I didn't think that they lent themselves very well to the task. So I went to the gun store looking for something like a basic Remington 870 pump or better yet a Mossberg 590. I didn't know a lot about defense shotguns at the time, but I knew the 590 had decades of military and law enforcement use. The shop had only one 20 gauge Mossberg left in stock, a tactical 590. I had one at a 12 gauge. And this 20 gauge was still about 40 inches in length. So I asked the clerk if he had any other options, and he told me they had another option for me, but it wasn't technically a shotgun. And he handed me the Shockwave. Unfortunately, they didn't have any 12 gauge Shockwaves left either, but this 20 gauge Shockwave kind of intrigued me. Certainly its size is about 26 inches overall. It was great, even better than I expected in fact. It's 6 ounces lighter than the 12 gauge version, and as a 20 gauge, I just thought it might be easier to maneuver, shoot, and control. There were other customers who are now looking very longingly at this Shockwave that I was holding, and unfortunately the store only had one still left in a box, so that fact left me with a little choice. It kind of prompted me to buy it right away. I'm glad I did, because today they're very hard to come by. O.F. Mossberg & Sons is a North Haven, Connecticut-based firm that began back in 1919. The company is named after its founder, Oscar Fredrik Mossberg, a Swedish immigrant. Mossberg remains a family-owned and operated company. The CEO is A. Ivor Mossberg, great-grandson of Oscar Frederick. The very first firearm to carry the Mossberg name was a .22 caliber pocket pistol known as the Brownie. In the 1960s, one of Mossberg's chief engineers, Carl Benson, who served as the company's chief firearms designer, helped to develop the famous 12-gauge pump model 500 with the Mossberg now signature Tang safety. Production of the Shockwave began in 2017 with the 12-gauge model, adding the 20-gauge and the 410 bore versions later. The action of the Shockwave is taken from the Mossberg 590 series of shotguns. The Shockwave name is actually inherited from the manufacturer of the grip, Shockwave Technologies. My Shockwave came in a basic cardboard box. Came with a lock, with a manual, a bit of other information. Pretty much that was it. The Mossberg Shockwave is a pump action firearm. It's different in its 14-inch barrel and bird head style grip. 20-gauge Shockwave weighs about 4.95 pounds empty. The magazine holds 5 rounds. It has a single brass bead sight with no rear sight. There are 4 tapped screw holes here for attaching a rail for optics, etc. Sliding Tang safety. It has points for attaching a sling. The forend has a fabric strap to help prevent your hand from slipping off and getting in front of the muzzle, which would be extremely bad. As for its pros and cons, the biggest con is obviously due to its biggest pro, its shortness. If you really think about it, the advantage of a shotgun is, well, the shoulder stock. They're easier to fire accurately compared to handguns. Obviously, you remove the shoulder stock and you lose that advantage. And another thing, aiming the Shockwave, as Mossberg recommends, from the hip negates the need for the brass bead. So I don't know why that's even there. So you'd expect accuracy on a hip shooter like this to be problematic for most people. Now, I admit that I'm not very good at shooting from the hip at any distance beyond a few yards. But to my surprise, even I could easily hit my target shooting from the hip with the Shockwave. I didn't expect that. Of course, that's with me facing the target and my target not moving. My first shot was high, but once I realized that, I was good from there on. Also, holding the firearm up and out to sight down the barrel, which Mossberg specifically states is a safety and safety warning not to do, is the way that I've seen most shooters shoot the Shockwave. For a longer distance, indeed, my experience was that I was better at accuracy holding the Shockwave up to sight down the barrel. However, without a stock, I still had some difficulty, especially after I'd fired and ran the action, lining everything back up again. I thought I just took a little bit too long. Now, maybe I'm just being a bit harsh here. I mean, close up, this thing is really effective, and as a 20 gauge, it's very controllable. To be honest, I'm probably just complaining about my own limitations. Well, the end of the fabric strap here is a little coarse on the ends and where it's attached. That might irritate some people. I've heard that the Mossberg safety can move forward on its own when running the gun hard, locking out the trigger by accident. Although I've never experienced that. In fact, I actually find the slide safety to be a bit stiff. I should also say that unlike the Remington 870, the Mossberg is a bit complicated to take apart and reassemble, so be prepared for that. Finally, don't try to conceal carry this weapon or modify its length in any way. That would indeed be illegal. On the pro side, again, the Shockwave is easy to carry and maneuver. I'm glad I settled on the 20 gauge. Given the comfortable recoil on this firearm, I'm not sure I'd trade it now for the 12 gauge. And with the right loads, I think this weapon should fulfill the home defense job just fine. and Mossberg makes a reliable quality product. It feels good and the action is smooth. I'm also pleased that there are adequate accessories for the 20 gauge Shockwave. Now, I've heard the critics call the Shockwave just plain silly, but I'm not so sure. I'm no expert, but it seems to me that it does make some sense as a home defense weapon. And given as popular as the Shockwave has become, it would appear that there are many owners out there that agree with me. And finally, it just looks cool, and I admit that it really is just plain fun to shoot. For disassembly, we're going to begin by unscrewing the magazine cap. Move the action about halfway. Should allow us to remove the barrel. Next, we're going to drive that pin for the trigger assembly out. Just pushes out fairly easily. Next, we're going to use a flathead screwdriver to pry off the end cap here on the stock. And down in here, there's a Allen head screw that we need to loosen up. Now we can rotate the trigger assembly, remove it. Next we'll remove the cartridge interceptor and the cartridge stop. Next we'll remove the bolt slide. Now you can remove the forearm action assembly. Should be able to push the bolt out forward of the receiver. With the safety on, I should be able to squeeze the lifters and lift that out. And there we are, complete disassembly. Reassembly will basically be the opposite of what we did for disassembly. We begin by putting the lifter back in, and the lifter has these two pins. They need to line up with these holes on either side here. So with the safety on, we're going to move these back in here, line them, there we go, it just drops down there. Next, returning to slide action assembly. We've got these slots here on either side of the assembly, and then the arms need to be squeezed down. Within the action, you can see the ends of the arms right here. Maybe they're sliding within this channel. The idea is to get them wiggled into that channel. Something pushing down on them helps. That helps a little bit. The assembly about halfway. Well, the bolt and the slide are out of the action. It's probably a good idea to see how they match up. They go together like that. And then I think it's good to see that they fit on the arms. These two notches fit like that, and then like that. So that's what you're trying to put together in the action. We'll insert the bolt from the front of the receiver and move to about the halfway position. Replace the bolt slide. Now with the bolt slide seated down on the slide arms, you can now assemble the cartridge stop and the cartridge interceptor. This is the cartridge interceptor. This is the cartridge stop. With the cartridge stop and cartridge interceptors in place, the trigger group should now rotate back into its slot. With the trigger group now in, we can reinsert the pin. With the pin in, we now can, and the trigger group, we now can reassemble the stock. Put the cap back on the stock. And now we can reinsert the barrel. And then we can screw the magazine end cap back on. And there we are. The suggested manufacturer's retail price for the Mossberg 590 20 gauge Shockwave is $469. Typical is about $360. I've not seen any used for sale. My reason behind getting this firearm in the first place was as a home defense weapon, so I felt it was a good idea to add a few accessories. I added the Crimson Trace green laser saddle for about $175, excellent system. The TacStar side-mounted 20 gauge shell saddle for about $30. CDM Gear MTRS 3-slot rail flashlight mount for about $35, very nice. And a Quick-Mount tactical flashlight holder, about 20 bucks. Works great. In addition, I added a Mossberg Scabbard Bag for the Shockwave, about $30. It's a good price, it's a good fit. I might actually add a sling if I can find one I like. Crimson Trace laser saddle comes with an instruction booklet there and a parts bag. And it comes with two sections. The first one is the laser system. And then it comes with an overlay that can be used to install on the 20 gauge. The 20 gauge is just slightly smaller in frame, so this is a good system here for being able to apply this to either the 20 gauge or the 12 gauge. First thing we're going to do is remove the pin here for the receiver. We're going to replace the pin with one that they provide that's it's threaded on either side. Going to remove the screws on the top here that are for the attachment of a rail system. Place the insert over the top here and the laser system. line the holes up. And we have 4 screws that are to replace the ones we just removed. We have screws provided for both sides, but we're only going to use one. Our side saddle cartridge system is going to be on the left side here, and we'll use a different screw to the final attachments there. But there's the laser system. We'll install the batteries. And we have a little area here that we can attach the Allen wrench for the battery case and also for adjustments to the laser for aiming. And we'll just throw the button here forward and test it out. Yep, looking good. Next we'll attach the TacStar side saddle. We have this unit here that's just going to sit on the side. In order to attach it, we need to remove the screw that's on the opposite side here. So we're going to move the action halfway. Allows us to get inside here. We've got a screw on this side right here. We're going to remove it. We have a replacement screw that's just a little bit longer. That screw gives us a place to attach one part of the system. As I mentioned, we're going to use the screw that was provided on the Crimson Trace system for the other side of that pin. Then we have a nut actually for this side. And there we are. That's pretty slick. Next we'll attach the accessory mount here from CDM Gear. I'm going to remove the magazine stop here. With the magazine cap removed, we now can loosen up the barrel. With the barrel removed, I can slide this unit over the magazine tube. I'm going to put the light system on the left-hand side, so this part here is going to be on the left. I just slide it on there, and I can just go ahead and return the barrel for it now. And the end cap. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the long screw here into this top section so that I can tighten the unit to the magazine tube. And now the rail has 2 holes here that line up with that pin. I'm going to move it forward. Put it on the first pin to the left here. It's pretty tight. So now the rail is installed, ready for a light to be attached or any other item I want to put on that rail. Next I have a Modkin light quick accessory unit here. That works pretty well. To summarize, the Mossberg 590 Shockwave 20 gauge firearm is compact enough to stow and maneuver. As a 20 gauge, it's comfortable enough to shoot and control, yet adequate to the task as a home defense weapon. In fact, with the proper training, practice, and perhaps the addition of a few of the right accessories, the Shockwave might even be more than just adequate. And in addition to its high coolness rating, it really is just fun to shoot. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.